unify, and that's with the coaching staff. It's not us versus them. Most success that I've had in this game is when everyone's on the same page, pushing in the same direction. It's not them versus us versus them. It's us against everybody else.
Coaches and players got to be in partnership. We're all together and shouldn't be clashing with each other. We're all going in the same direction.
New Orleans Saints quarterback Derek Carr finally opens up about the disastrous Raiders season. Plus, the Saints are working out a former Raiders player that might shock you. And no, this is not Bryan Edwards or Foster Moreau. This is something different that just dropped today. Plus, the Saints continue to wrap up mini camp, and Derek Carr talked about a wide range of topics, including doing Hard Knocks for the second time in his career. There are a few teams eligible for Hard Knocks this year, one of them being the Saints and also the Jets, the Commanders, and the Bears. I think the Bears would be boring. We all know that. Commanders could be interesting because of the Dan Snyder thing, but fans don't really care about owner drama. And the Jets would likely get the highest ratings, but they have not been willing to do Hard Knocks. Robert Saleh basically says he does not want it to happen because it would be a distraction. Derek Carr has had experience with Hard Knocks before in the 2019 offseason with Jon Gruden, with Antonio Brown and that fiasco. Well, Derek Carr had Hard Knocks there, and apparently he did not have too bad of a negative experience.
I'll say this, I loved my experience because the producers, everybody, they were so great. They weren't, so intrusive. They're trying to give secrets away. They're just trying to tell a story.
There were so many funny moments from Hard Knocks with the Raiders, including Gruden pass rushing Derek Carr. This man, 50-year-old pass rusher, that's always great. We all know about the famous better effing execution line by Jon Gruden.
I want better execution. Are we clear on that?
And Jonathan Abram, who is from New Orleans and is now on the Saints, was also a part of the Raiders and Hard Knocks, but had trouble pronouncing salmon.
Salmon or salmon?
Salmon.
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 And the Saints also have Jamal Williams, who was just on Hard Knocks last year, so maybe it was meant to be.
Think of last year and think of that record. Every time I get tired or I think I can't go no more, I think of that record. Last year wasn't it?
Damn. And we know Derek Carr has brought some friends from the Raiders. Jonathan Abram, the former first-round pick, Foster Moreau, the former fourth-round pick of the Raiders, and Bryan Edwards, the former third-round pick of the Raiders, who look pretty good at practice today. I will say, had a short pass from somebody other than Derek Carr. I'm not sure who was throwing him that pass, but dang, it was out there at the ankles, and Bryan Edwards still swooped it up. He was still able to make the catch. I think this guy, if healthy, could be a sleeper playmaker for the New Orleans Saints, and the Saints seem to think there could be more former Raiders who could be great playmakers, and no, it's not Hunter Renfrow. The Raiders do not seem like they're going to trade this guy yet. Maybe they're going to wait till something else happens, perhaps during the season, but the Saints had a visit with the former third-round pick in the 2020 draft, Lynn Bowden Jr. This is absolutely insane. He is a Swiss Army knife type of player. He was a wide receiver who transitioned to quarterback in college at the University of Kentucky. He ran the whole entire show, and the Raiders plan to use him as sort of a gadget player, almost like a Taysom Hill type player. So it's quite interesting to see the Saints work him out. I'm not exactly sure what role he would have with the team because the Saints had Alvin Kamara there. Who knows when his suspension is going to happen, but they got tons of running backs, Jamal Williams, Kendre Miller. And then the wide receiver room, we keep talking about it, especially given the fact that Michael Thomas appears healthy. They seem pretty loaded and crowded at wide receiver. And Jameis Winston looks like he's going to stay with the Saints as quarterback, and they also drafted Jake Haener in the 4th round. You also have Taysom Hill there, so I'm not sure exactly where Lynn Bowden fits. Taysom Hill was practicing with the Saints today, even took some snaps at quarterback. Seems like everything's going well between him and the Saints. I highly doubt Lynn Bowden's going to be some type of replacement, but we know injuries happen all the time in the NFL, so you gotta have depth. And what's so funny is Lynn Bowden sort of had some character issues with the Raiders. A lot of people thought that he was maybe having a negative influence on Damon Arnett and Henry Ruggs, and we were never quite sure exactly who was behind his release. Was it Jon Gruden or was it more Mike Mayock? Mike Mayock seemed to be more interested in character guys, and Gruden, when he originally drafted Lynn Bowden and did the draft call with him, he seemed ecstatic about getting this guy.
All right, I'm excited as hell. I've wanted to coach you from the first time I met you, man.
Yes, sir. I've been waiting on your call.
So we know athletically there is some potential there with Lynn Bowden Jr. After bouncing around from teams like the Raiders and the Dolphins, maybe Lynn Bowden is a different guy and he's ready to grind right now. The Saints have been building chemistry. Things are working out at practice. You got Kamara there. You got Michael Thomas, Derek Carr and company, Marshawn Lattimore as well. And they even went swamp fishing. They tried to assimilate Derek Carr into the culture of the South. Derek Carr has been from Texas, but not the South like Louisiana. And he spoke more about swamp fishing and even had to bust out the Southern accent.
Any of y'all been bow fishing? You been? Yeah. Like 2 of y'all. It's electric.
We know the tight end of the Saints, Foster Moreau, is from Louisiana. Maybe he can help Derek Carr assimilate.
But Foster texted me like while we were all on the boats, and he's like, "Bro, are you good?" Because he knows. I was like, "Bro, like I'm from California. I was in Houston, but I didn't do this, you know."
But Derek Carr has spoke about his accent before on the Harvester Sports podcast, his nephew's podcast, and he says, hey, he has some family from Texas. He's lived in the Central Valley of California, which is basically a mini Texas, so he does have somewhat of an accent.
Like saying y'all and we're fixing to go over here, like y'all come on over whenever you want, like. And so like when it comes out, like I was like, I don't know what y'all expect out of me. You know, like, this is exactly where I grew up. Just because you pull up my bio and it says Bakersfield or Fresno, like, he faked his accent.
We all know he's a California guy, and every once in a while this accent pops out. Maybe if the Saints win the division, go deep into the playoffs, his accent will change dramatically to that Southern Cajun accent that we hear from the likes of Coach O.
John Emery, another great young man from Destrehan, Louisiana. Hold on a second. Hey guys! Hey! I'm having a press conference, okay? Thank you!
And maybe he'll even go Farmer Fran from The Water Boy. And we know there's been some drama with the Raiders. Some players have left who seem like great players, and they've made some comments about head coach Josh McDaniels. And we had Darren Waller with the Giants talking about how at previous places he's played at, they didn't listen to him.
We value our opinions here, and you know, as a player, I feel like a lot of places I've gone, it's, you know, you're told to do things a certain way, and you do those things. And coaches and players got to be in partnership. We're all together, and shouldn't be clashing with each other. We're all going in the same direction.
And this is coupled with the fact that Josh McDaniels, the head coach of the Raiders, accidentally leaked Darren Waller's wedding and then traded him on his honeymoon. And Darren Waller's wife mentioned that Josh McDaniels, the head coach of the Raiders, was not invited to his wedding, which is maybe why he traded him on his honeymoon. And when Waller talks about previous coaches, he's not talking about John Gruden, who's the only other Raiders coach he's played under, because just recently he says he loves John Gruden.
Yeah, I mean, I love John Gruden to death.
And then we have Derek Carr talking about the players versus the coach last year with the Raiders, him trying to assimilate with that new genius Josh McDaniels offense last year, it not working out, and why he thinks it could perhaps work out this upcoming year because the Saints will get the best version of him.
You know, there's things last year, and while learning a new system and trying to go through certain situations and philosophies and all this kind of stuff, where I don't think that they got the best version of me. And so I'm trying my best to just unify, and that's with the coaching staff. It's not us versus them. Most success that I've had in this game is when everyone's on the same page, pushing in the same direction. It's not them versus us versus them. It's us against everybody else.
This was a long question that was basically saying, why is it going to work out this year instead of last year in terms of learning a new offense and what he could have personally done to make it better? And it seems like he doesn't think that there's too much he could have done personally. And he even talks about giving people tips in the future on how to address coaching changes as a quarterback. And I think the damning thing and the most critical thing he said in light of the Darren Waller comments as well and the fallout that happened between Derek Carr and the Raiders is the fact that he was trying to basically sell what the Raiders are doing, but the players on the team could see in his face that it's tough.
It could be a great lesson for me to learn to help some guys down the road when they go through a coaching change or go through a shift in whatever they're doing. I think it'd be a great lesson for me to teach guys just some of the things I've learned over the last 12 months. Trying to do this, trying to do that, trying to, get the guys excited about a certain thing or a certain way. even though they could see on my face it was tough and things like that, you know, in certain ways. And, you know, I just didn't feel like myself. And I feel bad to, you know, the coaches and the players because they didn't get my best.
And if you're a Saints fan watching this, you might not be familiar with me. I'm a Raiders fan. I made a lot of content about the fallout between Derek Carr and the Raiders last year and how it was very sketchy, and it seemed like Josh McDaniels, the head coach of the Raiders, was trying to force him out. And this is another example of it right here from Warren Sharp of Sharp Football. This is just one of many facts, is the fact that the Raiders broke the record, the most in NFL history, of blowing a lead and losing a game after having a touchdown plus at halftime. No one else even comes close. And on top of this, the Raiders actually had a losing record in games that they led by 13 plus points. They had 4 losses. When leading by 13 plus points, nobody else in history even comes close. It's only number 2. And this is very odd if you've watched Derek Carr's entire career like I have as a Raiders fan. The dude is the comeback king. That's what he's known for, is winning the game in the 4th quarter. Yeah, maybe you wish he wouldn't make it so close all the time. The defense is a problem. Sometimes he's a problem as well. But this was just so uncharacteristic. So I am glad to see Derek Carr drop some hints that, hey, things were not clicking between the coach and the QB last year for sure. We'll see this year if there are better results. And this is really a huge test, not only for Derek Carr and the Saints, but also for the Raiders and Josh McDaniels. There are 2 sides here that can be vindicated based on the result that happened in the 2023 season. This is an NFL channel where we're talking about all the biggest stories around the NFL. I recently covered the Bills, the Browns, the Seahawks, but I'll be dropping Saints content on this channel for sure. My name is Wi-Fi Willie. Check out some of these other videos you may have missed. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.